So we are recording. Okay, so again, welcome everyone. This is the second of 6 presentations for the Art Show and STEAM Expo for the 2021 academic year. We're joined this evening by Francesco Gallarini, an ASA grad and an international architect, who's going to share with us some fantastic projects that he's worked on in the past, as well as the direction of architecture in the future. And then following his presentation, we're going to hear from some ASA students who are doing similar creations in the field of design and architecture. So this, again, is part of our commitment to art and STEAM at ASA. We're celebrating this during the last 2 weeks of school here with our community. We had a guest last evening with Fourth Dimension Design talk about engineering design and technical design. He was a project manager from a US-based engineering company. This evening, we are blessed with Francesco an international architect, tomorrow evening. But at this point, I think we'll just turn it over to the main event for this evening. Mabel Avila, you're here as well. Would you like to introduce our guest for this evening?
Thank you very much, Tyler. Good evening. I have the pleasure to introduce Francesco Gallarini. He was my student here at ASA in middle and high school. He was a very talented student, very creative, and I admire him, and he now is a famous architect and now is my friend. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Francesco, for coming this evening, and thank you for sharing this project that Tyler is doing, and after that we will have our famous art show. Okay, good evening.
Okay, and thank you everyone who's attending to the webinar. I graduated from ASA in 1996, and I was like a lot this, let's say the science part of my education, and also the art. I was like, I loved my art class, and I guess that took me to choose architecture as my career, because it has a lot of science into it, but also a lot of art. And I started studying in Italy right after school, and then I had an offer for a scholarship for a very small university in Switzerland. It was in the middle of the Alps. And I decided to go to Switzerland and try it. It was a very unique school in the sense it was brand new. It was a very humanistic school. Like, we had a lot of classes that were not exactly technical. Like, we had philosophy, we had a lot of art, we had a lot of also scientific classes. So it was a lot of a mix, and it was a very international crowd of students, so it was super fun. And I graduated there after 6 years, and I started working first in Italy and as a hotel designer. I started making a very small hotel downtown Milan, and then after a year and a half, I got contacted by a very large company, which is Armani. Armani is a fashion designer in Italy. I mean, you probably know him from the bags, the shoes, and his clothing design, but he also has a furniture design that's called Armani Casa. And he, back in the early 2000s, he started, let's say, trying to design hotels, or what they call lifestyles right now. So I was hired. I was the best, let's say, the first one to be hired in the hotel team. And we were, we started designing a hotel in Dubai. The project was going to be inside the world's tallest tower, which I believe still is. It's the Burj Khalifa. And inside we had a hotel which had like 150 bedrooms, 160 apartments, 7 restaurants, 8 bars and lounges, a very large ballroom, meeting rooms, and whatnot. So it was a spa, sauna. So it was a huge project. It was something that I've never done it, not even in university. And it was a huge challenge. Besides, it was inside this tower. It was not done yet. It was getting built. So we had that thing that we had to like work on a very, very tight schedule, on a very challenging design from the Armani team or my team. And also we had to conciliate everything with what we were doing in the, what was happening for the tower. It took us 5 years to finish that project. And then I went back to do the Armani Hotel in Milan. And I think that my education had a lot to do. I think it started back in ASA. ASA was very formative for me in a way that I chose. When I graduated, I really knew what I was looking forward. I mean, architecture was there for me, like right from high school, basically. And I think that was my experience in Dubai and abroad.
And we're looking at some of the photos right here. You passed the PowerPoint to me earlier. We kind of jumped right into it. There's a lot going on here. Like I'm noticing like curves and structures and designs and shapes and colors. How do some of the architects make these choices? Like I don't really see like blue. I don't see the color blue very much yet.
Oh no, not at all. And it's weird because Mr. Armani had this thing with the design, which he said that when he visited Dubai, which he didn't like a lot as a city, he said that the natural light from sunlight was too hard. And his impression of Arab architecture was that everyone tries to hide from the sun. So he said like that in his point of view as a designer, he wanted like very heavy shades and curtains. And also he wanted really dark colors. And there's colors that he doesn't like blue doesn't exist in his palette, and green. I mean, light green. Pink is non-existent. Like that's something you don't show a pink sample to Mr. Armani unless you want to get fired super fast. But yeah, he used a lot of cream colors, a lot of golden, and he's a very, very, how can I say, he does a lot of micro designing. Like he gets involved from very large things to like the small pillow in a sofa, or the little ashtray who's going to put on a table. He can be very obsessive with things like that. And as an architect and as a designer, it's kind of weird, but it's what we tend to do. We're trying to get involved in every part of a design, even to the smallest detail, right? And the curve thing was super strange because when I first saw the project, it was all curved walls. Like none of the apartments, a lot of the public areas, like the restaurants and whatnot, and also the bedrooms, there's not a single straight wall. And that was a challenge, both construction-wise and detailing-wise. Like, it wasn't something I was used to do. I studied it in Switzerland where we turned to do concrete boxes. Everything is a rectangular box detail. So even thinking out of the box was really strange for me at that point in time.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the photos that we're seeing here? I'm just
this for example was a small like gourmet sort of like retail space inside the Armani Hotel. It was called Cracco Armani. Cracco Peck is a famous chef in Italy, and he had like a small sort of like a coffee, but where you can also buy your spices, your coffee, your sugar, like your cold cuts and whatnot. And that was his space. And this one was, let's say, the least challenging, both as a design, also as a space. It was like this place, like this area was only supposed to work mornings, lunch, and mid-afternoon. It was at nighttime, let's say. And he chose a very classic palette here, like a classic black and white flooring, a lot of black lacquer, and that's about it. Yeah. And marble, lots of marble. That's the Japanese restaurant. And it was like, this one was like on the ground floor. And I mean, what I liked about Armani was that he likes to visit a lot, like cultures, but he also likes to to take things from a context and put them into another. Like In this, he used a green marble. For example, the floor is a green marble that we bought from, I think it was Africa. I don't remember exactly which country was it, but it was a really, I mean, I was flown to procure the material because we didn't have enough for it. And it was, I mean, we basically had to block a mountain where they were cutting the stone for us for a year.
It sounds like you're kind of sharing some of the stories about like the details that architects have to go on, as well as like the grand scheme and the vision. So a lot of the stuff we're seeing here, like down to the furniture, down to the curves, down to the like the lighting, is that something that involves architects as well, or is that maybe more interior?
I mean, and the way I would describe architecture, I mean, and I've been working for the last, I don't know, 14, 15 years into it, and I still don't have a formula for it. But what I think at the end, it's like you're kind of like a orchestra director, right? You're directing something. You have an engineering team, you have the furniture design team, you have the light design team, and you're trying to orchestrate everything in order to make it work, right? And when it comes to hotel, it's even worse because there's a part that's the hotel operator that they're going to make money out of it. So there's a lot of other things that come into play that as an architect you don't consider, right? For example, we had a fight with Mr. Armani and the hotel operators because he didn't want a fridge in the bedroom or in the rooms, and most hotels, you know, they sell stuff through the fridge. So we had a huge argument about it. And at the end, we finished, we didn't call it a fridge, we call it a butler station because it was more than a fridge to him. So that was a fun thing about working with him, that he pushed the limits in everyone, like in me and clients and whatnot. But yeah, I guess as an architect, you're directing things, like, and everyone starts asking questions, even like, I mean, there's a joke between the difference between an architect and an engineer, and usually like engineers more precise, more into it, but everyone always goes back to the architect and say, hey, how does this work? What was the design scheme to it, you know? So yeah, that's the way I would describe it. So yeah, there's every single detail. I remember like for this project, we contacted a company, it was called Fisher Marantz. They were based in New York, and actually him is a famous light designer. He won an Oscar, I mean, 2, I guess, for doing lighting in movies. And he worked in New York for, I mean, his background came from lighting in, I call it, musicals and Broadway sort of stuff. And working with that guy was magical because it was this extremely exquisite, fun guy to work with. But he had such a way and intensity of working with lights. Like, lighting was everything. I mean, if you see this lobby at night, the one you're showing right now, that's the lobby of the hotel, and you see it during the day, it's completely different, you know? And I mean, I was involved in the lighting design, but I was more into the artistic aspect to it. I had to like translate what Mr. Armani wanted to the lighting team and work with them. And at the end, it all led up with him being at 5 in the morning on a stair up there changing light bulbs. So it all goes down to that at the end.
This is really interesting. I mean, I feel like we could have you here for an hour or two and just have more and more stories. Here's a quick question. How important are personnel like soft skills, like, you know, interpersonal skills as an architect? Because you're talking about how you kind of have to be an orchestrator. You have to deal with so many different people with different needs. You know, you're dealing with the engineer, you're dealing with the clients, you're dealing with the hotel operators that want to make money. How often do a lot of these concerns kind of get funneled back to the architect?
It's a lot of social skills, like, and you have to polish them, especially when you're working. Like, this was anytime we say La Torre di Babel, it was like Babel Tower. Like, most of my workers, they were Indian, they did not speak English. Some were Pakistani, some were Afghani, and you would sometimes walk into a floor and like there was like, I don't know, level 24 finished, level 25 finished, and for some reason you walk in level 27, it was complete chaos, and no one understood what you were trying to do, and basically you had to learn very simple commands and words in Indian, in Hindi, And my first thing when I walked into a floor was project manager kidere, which means where's the project manager on the floor? Because I was like, or an upper, because it means up. And that was when they were trying to tell me. So yeah, I mean, you have the language challenge, and then you have that everyone. So, I mean, even if you're working together in one project, everyone's pushing, let's say, on one side of their own, like, you know, what they want to get done at that time, you know. And you get into, I mean, it's surreal, but sometimes you get into challenges like someone will leave us, you know, a small stair, like a, you know, those flexible staircases that you put a light bulb, and one team wouldn't touch the one, like the, let's say the electrical team wouldn't touch the you know, the materials, the working materials of the let's say the people were doing the drywall, and you have to go there and do a lot of diplomacy, because they were like little children fighting on a yard, you know, like, I won't touch that, I won't do that, he's late, he's behind. So you have a lot of that, but it's also a lot of fun, because it's weird, but a lot of things you solve right there last minute, and there's incredible solutions. Like, I mean, I could talk for hours of things that we solved there. We bought 400 doors that we brought from the United States, because we used the fire rating, the door fire rating from we use the American standards, but someone missed a few millimeters, so all the doors were, I mean, we couldn't use them, and we had all our bedroom doors and we couldn't close them. And actually, when one of my Indian workers came out with a solution, it was super clever. And I mean, not a lot of our super graduated engineers and architects then came to it, which was basically changed the how I gonna call it? It wasn't the lock, it's the hinges. And we actually bought a very simple hinge that we changed, and that changed the size of everything. But it was like, it was a problem we had on a table, and we call it a critical problem. We were thinking we're gonna get fired, that we're gonna get killed. The guy that bought the doors was like, probably was having his worst case of nightmares for a week. And it was solved by a guy that probably never ever worked before in a building, you know? So yeah, it's a lot of that. I mean, half of what I do is design intent, and the other half is luck. It's good timing, and it's things you learn doing there. I mean, for me, architecture in many ways, what I find it challenging is that I mean, there's so many things you solve in paper, and there's so many things you don't solve in paper, and they're gonna pop up there, you know. So yeah.
It's really interesting. Mabel, maybe Ami, Mai, and Gina, if anyone else has questions, please jump in. I think this would be a great chance to kind of start asking a few more questions, and then maybe we'll shift to some presentations. It looks like we do have a hand in the audience. We're going to get to audience questions toward the end. You can use the Q&A. Julian, I see you have your hand up. Just go ahead and put a question in the Q&A and go there. Mabel, are there any questions that you want to ask Francesco?
No, I'm really admire with the luxury of this hotel, and with the design. The lights are all over. I mean, it is incredible. It is just like a movie, really. The light of this space is incredible, and I'm very proud of you, Francesco.
Oh, thank you, Mabel.
Mai, Ami, or Gina, any questions that you girls would like to ask at this point? Please just go ahead, unmute yourself, and jump in. If not, we'll probably we'll finish out this and then transition to one of your presentations. So if you have a question, now is a good time to ask.
I have a question. What motivated you for being a designer? Like, was a family member one, or like with social media? Like,
no, when I was a kid, my uncle, he was an architect, and my father was an engineer. And I always thought, oh, my father's job is so boring. I mean, he's always crunching numbers and things. And I went to see my uncle. He was always drawing. He had a love of colors, like markers and paint. And I was like, I want to do that. I mean, he's drawing all day. How fun can that be, you know? So that was my first impression with architecture. I thought it was kind of, hey, you get to draw all day and doodle and do small things, and you don't have to do a lot of numbers. And I wasn't that good in math when I was in high school, actually. But it turned out to be there's so much math in architecture. So, but by then I was already stuck in university. I don't know. I mean, for me, also architecture, there's a lot of things which I enjoy a lot, which is science, arts, and there's a lot of social parts that you consider when you build something. You always ask yourself that question: who am I building to, and how I'm going to affect the life of that person with what I'm building. Even if you don't notice, like if I threw you in a very dark room with no lights, you're going to get depressed. That's simple as that. So spaces tend to affect our feelings and our emotions and our way of living, and it's a statement in a way. So I guess that when I was in university, it was the thing that, if I had to check all the things that really fired me up as a person, architecture, had all those checks into it. It had arts, it had science, and it had a lot of social things. So yeah. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yeah. And it's fun. I mean, I really enjoy being an architect. I mean, when I was a kid, it used to be more of a one person thing. Like it was like a big name. Like you read books and it's Frank Lloyd Wright, Mies van der Rohe, these big architectural names. The way the industry is turning right now, it's so fast that you work with teams. So you learn so much, like fast. And I think that's what I loved about architecture. Like right from when I started studying.
All right. Well, why don't we share some of the things that we're doing? We are students still. We're students still, so we're still building and we're still developing. And it's really good to see where the skills that we develop can go in the future. And so we're going to share with you some of the stuff that we've been doing in a class that we have called digital design. Gina, do you want to go first? Do you want to just go ahead and screen share, and you can just take over from this presentation? And there's a few programs that we've been looking at in our courses, and we've used them in several grade levels. A popular one is called SketchUp. It used to be through Google, and I think it's spun out now. And then another one we've been using quite a bit is called Tinkercad, and we were talking about that earlier before. Gina, are you able to screen share?
Yeah, I'll do it now.
Yeah, just go ahead and take over. And so we're just going to share with you some ideas, and go ahead and give your insight, kind of some of your feedback on things that can be improved, or just your architecture point of view. There you go.
I have to explain what it is, right?
Please do. Yeah.
So on our digital design class, we needed to like redesign a famous monument or make our own. And at the time, I really didn't have any ideas on what to do. So I took the Taj Mahal, like as an example. So like the base is the Taj Mahal, and I was looking to make like a monument that could be like that would fit here in Paraguay. So that's why there are like a lot of trees around it. And I used Tinkercad for this, but I can't present it there because my work didn't get saved. But I added like butterflies, trees, and then like I think this is like a mushroom, I guess. Like how do you say, like a fantasy vibes it will give off. And I think that's about it. And this is one more picture from another view. And this one. I don't know if you can see it.
I think we're still seeing the original one, it looks like.
Oh.
There we go.
It says it's paused.
What were some of your inspiration for this one? You said Taj Mahal, but you were also trying to connect to Paraguay. And so maybe what were some of the buildings in Paraguay? Like I know there is the Basilica, the Cacupe Basilica is a pretty big one. Are there any other like, I don't know, Paraguayan buildings that kind of inspired you?
Maybe like the color, I didn't find it like very similar, but I think it's the Palacio de los Lopez. It has like a orangey color, I think, if I remember well. So I try to put that color too on the building.
After
Mm,
seeing some of the images of the Armani Hotel, what do you, if you could come back to this design and play with it again, what do you think you would do? If you could
I
remake
think
it
I
or
probably would change a lot of stuff. Maybe like make it more modern and change it, like I would change the structure too, like a lot of it after seeing.
I actually like a lot the mushroom roof you put on top. It's super. I mean, I wouldn't change that much what you did below. I would have made it even bigger, taller, you know.
Yeah, right.
And I like the color a lot
Thank
with the
you.
green. Super nice.
Mai, why don't you go ahead next? Share what you have.
Okay. So mine's simpler. It was also my first time using the Tinkercad website. So at first I had to like move things around and like play with it. And after that, I decided to like create one, but I really didn't have an idea. My mind was really blank. So Mr. Sheldon, he suggested if we could like rearrange a monument that already exists. And I used the Colosseum as the base. It was because we were in world history and we were talking about the Colosseum, so that the monument showed up in my mind. And after this is originally the Colosseum was from another person, but I copy pasted it and rearranged some things. So I added 2 more layers, 2 more floors to make it like more taller. And I also added like a flat rooftop. Like I don't know if it's scientific, but with my observation, modern like houses tend to have like a flat rooftop than like a triangular one. I think that triangular one is just like not that common anymore in the modern world, I guess. So I added a flat rooftop and I slightly changed the color, but I liked it how the original color was more like a vintage, like old fashioned style. And yes, that's it.
You know, one thing we noticed with the Burj Khalifa and the Armani Hotel was there's a lot of design interior as well. So like, let's say you had to go inside of this and completely design the interior. What kind of choices would you make? You know, what would you do for lighting? What would you do for colors? What would you do for like the kind of spaces that you would create for people?
Um, that's too much. But I added a rooftop for people like to not get like dehydrated because the Coliseum basically doesn't have a rooftop, so maybe people would get like very hot. So
You
I
should have
added one.
tents.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah. Um, for the inner one, maybe like a darker one, like lighting and like furniture would get good.
I really like the Colosseum. It's one of my favorite buildings. And actually, when you see it live, it's just shocking because it was built so many years ago and it's still standing. Survived wars, survived being Rome was bombarded during World War II. I mean, it survived earthquakes, everything, and it's still there, you know. And the arcs, actually the scheme that you did that it goes inside is actually very smart because it was a way that, I mean, arcs were tend to be built that way, that the structure that goes above to make it a bit more lightweight, you turn to like decrease the area, right? And I mean, I find there's a lot of variations. You should check out. There's a in Rome there's a square Coliseum. It's called Il Coliseo Quadrato and it was built in 1920s and it's a square building with the arcs. It's super nice. And I like the color too, so really nice job. And the roof, I guess it's a good idea, because if you go in summer to the Coliseum, you're gonna get a suntan inside.
Or a mask tan at this point, if we're
Yeah,
all
yeah,
wearing our
mask tan,
masks.
Yeah. But I really like the
Oh,
arts and the design. It's nice. It's good.
great. Ami, why don't you take over and share what you got?
Yes. This is what I did. It doesn't look like a temple, but like it is a temple. I mostly painted it with, colored it with red and black to make it more like Japanese style. And since we started this project, I just knew I had to do a temple because I liked them. And I imagined what a temple would have. And I thought it would have like a stair and then these red borders. And yeah, for the roof, at first it only had like a black rectangle, but then I thought it would look like very incomplete. So I just put like a traditional triangular roof. And yeah.
Can you pan around, show us some of the sides of this one? You can rotate around.
Oh,
can't
yes.
you? Yeah, just kind of let us see some of the different perspectives on this. And these were all the shapes that, did you make this one entirely from scratch, or did you like kind of remix someone else's project on this one?
No, I did this entirely from scratch.
Okay. One of the great things about Tinkercad is the idea that you can tinker other people's things. And so you don't always have to start from the beginning. You can take some of the models that exist and play with them and remake them and remix them. But sometimes we start from the beginning. And when we do, it's like you have to put all of these individual pieces in there. And so every single one of those shapes you chose, you decided where to put, and you made in there, like all of the fences and all of the borders. What about the functionality of this place? How would you use this place? You say it's an Asian temple. What are the rooms inside? What would it be used for? Is it multiple stories?
Yes, it's like 2 stories, and I think it will be used to pray. I often see like animations of like Japanese people praying like inside and have like a statue in it. It doesn't look that big, but I think it would fit.
It kind of looks like it gets larger.
Big.
Yeah, it's bigger the higher up it goes. That's pretty cool. Cool. I don't know, Francesco, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I like this design a lot too, because it's like a deconstruction of a temple. Like if you look at it, there's every element that you define in a temple. You have a staircase that goes up, usually 3, 4, I call it scalini, we call it in Italian. And then you have like the body, the main part of the temple. And I also like the color you use, red. Why red? It's a question. Why is it red?
Like when I imagined a temple, I thought it would be black and red, like those 2 main colors. And I also like red, so that's why I might.
Well, great. Well, thank you.
What
everyone.
I like a lot about your design is that you took elements that are like very decorative, very rectangular, and you play them in a way that they still produce that impression of decoration. And that's very, very well done. Like, I mean, I wouldn't have thought of doing something like that. And it's very enjoyable because there's things that even though they're rectangles and straight lines, they do talk a lot about, Japanese architecture in general and, Asian architecture. So yeah, it's really nice. It has like something of a pagoda. Pagoda, yeah. It's a typical construction, so it's super nice. And I like the red and the black too. They're very nice colors.
Another thing, Francesco, that you talked about earlier was you ended up going to university in Europe. Now, a lot of our students end up going to the States. I don't know, Ami, Mai, Gina, I don't know what your plans are. Do you have any recommendations for us as students in general about European universities?
I'm a big fan of my university, and because it's a very, very mixed community of students from everywhere in the world. We had Chinese students, we have Japanese, we had Singaporean, We had South American, we had German, Swiss, Italian, and we shared a lot. Many of our professors we shared with Stanford, we had two. They were from Harvard, and it's very cheap. So compared to going to the States, and you're studying in the Swiss Alps. I mean, how good can that be? You get to ski in winter. In summer, it's pretty nice weather, and I guess that education-wise, I think that it's a good alternative to the States. And I mean, in let's say the way my university was structured back then, after your first year, you had to do a year abroad wherever you wanted, but you had to work at least 6 months in an office, an architectural office. And they did that just so we would know by the second year we really wanted to be an architect, because when you see day to day what an architect does, you know, you can make that choice. Hey, do I want to make this or want to start doing this for the rest of my life? But you also could go and work for a photographer, for an artist. A lot of my friends went and worked for artists that did sculptures, or photographers, or a lot of people just went to travel the world. And when they came back, you know, they had a different baggage that you shared, because a lot of what you do in architectural school, there's a lot of debate. Like I always said that you did a small square and painted a color and you would talk for hours about it, but it's the way it is. But yeah, I think it was a very good alternative. When I worked, my year abroad working, I went to New York, and I felt very comfortable with what I've had learned in Switzerland in a year and a half in order to work in an office in New York. It was super fun. And I don't know, I mean, I've never, ever imagined before that when I was in high school, that I would end up in a Swiss university. I mean, everything I knew about Switzerland was like chocolate, cuckoo clocks.
Cuckoo clocks, yeah.
And that's about it. And everything looks like a postcard. That's what they say about Switzerland. But educational wise, it was brilliant. It was super fun. And I think it has it's a right mix as a school between classic sort of like technical polytechnic school and an artistic school. So yeah, it's very recommended.
It looks like we have a question in the Q&A at this point. It says, as a big commercial art fan and the buses of Asunción, I admire the design behind you. Are those buses of Asunción?
Yeah, it's true. All this are like segments of buses. A friend of mine, she's an artist, she did it. And you can see the different líneas. There's La Línea 18 and whatnot. So yeah. When I was a kid, we used a lot of buses.
So now it's kind of an open Q&A time. These evening sessions are meant to be pretty short and sweet, and so we're going to wrap up really quickly. But Ami, Mai, Gina, if you have any other questions just about studying abroad outside of the US, being an architect, or working on, what was it, La Torre de Babel, the Tower of Babel, as we said. Now's a good time to ask. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up pretty soon. I see, Huli, you have your hand up. If you want to write your question in the chat or the Q&A, Huli, go ahead and write your Q&A. I think he just wants to say hi to you.
Julie, I know Julie.
Great.
Hola, Julie.
I have one question.
Yeah.
What language does your university in Switzerland teach you? Because when you end up traveling a lot, you need to learn more languages.
No, but there's one common language for everyone, and it's English. I mean, we had professors that were German that couldn't speak Italian. We had American professors that couldn't speak German. And Italian is a very simple language, but for some reason nobody wants to speak it. So yeah, most of my classes were in English, most of them, and a very awkward, funny English because it's fun. Like I still have fun memories of hearing a very strong German accent when they speak in English, or sometimes they will mix words from German to English. They were super fun. But yeah, it's English mainly. Yeah.
We have another question that says, Tio France, I don't know
Tio
if that's an
France,
inside joke. How many stories does the Armani Hotel have?
Oh, 1,000. It has a million stories. It's, I always think that if the human challenge of building a tower so tall in the middle of the desert and with people from all over the world, it was incredible. When I first saw the project and I went there, my mind, I was like, there's no way these people are going to build this. It's not going to happen no matter what. I remember the company that was building it. It was the building itself was developed by a Korean company. It's Samsung, same thing from your cell phones. They actually are a very famous construction company. And we had a satellite. We had like this whole very complicated way of measuring the way the tower is going up, because no matter what, you have a wind factor that's going to make it goes, every floor is going to go an inch here, an inch there, an inch there. And at the end, we're doing the same thing Romans did for the Colosseum. We dropped this rope with a small weight and we just watched it. We were centering everything. So yeah, it was incredible. We're using a satellite, but we were using the same things that people used to build houses back 2,000 years ago.
We have another question kind of similar to that. It says, how has the move to green building affected architecture? I guess kind of more of the modernization of architecture, also like conservation of environment.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think that it's a lot. I mean, there's a Greek saying, they always say there's nothing new under the sun. And when you think about green buildings, everyone think that some logics are brand new. They're actually old. They're reinterpretation of old construction methods, of placing a building on a way that the sun hits him in a certain way during the day or during the night, using materials that were like let's say the modern world or like the industrial age shows us not to use anymore. Like you see a lot of green buildings that use like passive energy, for example, adobe construction, rammed earth. I don't know if you ever heard straw bale constructing. It's called Nebraska's method. And it's, I mean, I did workshops on it and it was fun because here I am, the Armani architect doing straw bale architecture with hippies in the mountains. But actually it's incredible. It's super fun to do, easy, and it's passive. And it's something that the pioneers, or I guess the people who were moving up west, were using to build their houses back in the 1800s. So I don't think that's that new. It didn't change. It did make people think of living in a different way, I would say more efficient way, but I don't think it changed that much.
I think you also talked earlier about how Giorgio Armani, when he came to Dubai, he was kind of looking at the local culture and what their needs are in terms of avoiding the light and heavy curtains and really trying to design based around what the local climate is.
Yeah.
Great. Ami, Mai, Gina, any more questions? Mabel, it looks like we don't have any more from our audience at this point. If not, what I'm going to do is share just a little bit of what's coming up next. So thank you very much again, Mr. Gallarini, for really helping us headline this evening. We have tomorrow night, we are going to be hearing from Claudia Rodriguez. She's the director of the Ben Franklin Science Corner here in Paraguay, and she's going to be talking about STEM education. Thursday evening, we're going to hear from Dr. Fernando Elias. He's a U.S. Embassy affiliated medical doctor, and he's going to discuss practicing medicine and bio during times of COVID. Then we'll be off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday, we'll be back with ASU Maspe and Sistema Bay. They're a community improvement about innovations, and they're currently renovating the neighborhood of Santísima Trinidad here in Asunción. And then Tuesday, if you want to join us one more time, we're going to be joined with Dr. Jorge Curita. He's the engineering director of the Paraguayan Space Agency. And he's going to talk about the Guarani Sat-1 satellite that got launched back in, I think it was February this year. And then it was deployed to the space station in March. All right, well, that's the end. That's the end of our session.
Thank you, everybody. Nice meeting you. Thank you.
And thank you, girls. That is the end of our session. I'm going to close it up. Everyone have a fantastic evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.